All right. This one is Introduction to Microsoft Publisher. And this presents some challenges because I would imagine that the vast majority of you do not have Microsoft Publisher on your computers. And this is something that we would have in our lab. We do have in our labs at the Hartnell Computer Lab locations, but I can't assume that you're going to have it on your computers. And because you can't be assumed to have it on your computer or device that you're taking this class with, I'm not going to have any assignments specific to Microsoft Publisher. Microsoft Word will be adequate to do all of the presentation programs that are published programs that I'm going to require in this class, but Microsoft Word is not as adept at doing complicated things. It's the wrong tool. Word was designed for writing reports, memos, faxes, letters, even books. You can do newsletters and other things to a certain extent. It does allow you to do columns and all kinds of fancy things are in there, but it really starts to show its weakness when you're doing what are considered true desktop publishing types of products. Things like brochures, trifold brochures, business cards, even things like calendars and newsletters that are, complex layouts that are a traditional newspaper or magazines layout. All of those things, can you do them in Word? Yeah, Word can do them. But it does them in a way that is targeted at the non-professional desktop publisher. And it does things in ways that are sometimes difficult to understand how they did it. And, using built-in templates where somebody's already solved some of the problems for you. And Microsoft Publisher is more well designed and intended for actual complete control over page layout setups. Complex folded brochures and magazines and newspapers are the perfect example. And also web pages. Web pages are complex design elements, and Microsoft Publisher is better at it than Word. Can you make a web page in Word? Yes. Of all the places where Word falls on its face, that's probably the biggest one. But in any of the things that I mentioned, Word is the wrong tool. You can get something done, you can do it once or twice, but if you're going to be doing it a lot, you want a better tool. And that, according to Microsoft, is Microsoft Publisher. According to me, I would never use Microsoft Publisher, ever. Not quite true. I'm being a little bit harsh on it. Microsoft Publisher is a pretty damn good tool, but if I'm going to go that far to use a professional tool like Microsoft Publisher, I'm not going to use Publisher. If I'm going that far anyway, I'm going to go the extra step to use Adobe InDesign, which is a true desktop publishing tool. And there's other tools. I can't even remember the other one that is for other types of uses in the Adobe arsenal of programs. But Adobe InDesign, its disadvantage is it's pricey. I have no idea what it is now. I haven't looked in a while, but I paid one time, I paid like $450 for that sucker. And that was a good price at the time. That was a really good price. But I was doing it when I needed it. If I'm going to build a web page, I wouldn't use Microsoft Publisher either. I would use a specific web page, website design tool. And there's some really fabulous ones out there. I'm not going to even get into that now. But again, I think that if you're going to take the leap from Microsoft Word to a more professional program for specific tasks, I would leap right over Microsoft Publisher and go to some of these other tools. That said, I have been in numerous situations at Hartnell or before I was at Hartnell where the tool that was in front of me was Microsoft Publisher. That's what I had to work with. That's what I used because it was available and I didn't have to buy and install some other program. It is quite capable. It does a damn good job. It just, people in the industry are going to look down their nose and go, Microsoft Publisher, who the hell uses that? The one time I did use Microsoft Publisher more extensively was in a company where we had occasional things to kick out that were newsletter brochure-like things that ended up landing on my plate to do. And we had Microsoft Office Professional with Microsoft Publisher, and it was there, so I used it. We didn't have InDesign. Sometimes I would go home and use InDesign and just do it at home, but if I'm at work, this is the tool I had to use. So, why am I showing this to you now after saying all of that? Because you should be aware of it. You really should. Publisher helps you easily create, customize, and publish materials such as newsletters, brochures, flyers, catalogs, and websites, and publish easily on your desktop printer. I am not going to check this link here. I have no idea if it's still active. I don't care. You can easily find Publisher on Microsoft's website. Actually, hold on a second. I'm going to look here real quick. $2019. All right. The reason I took this quick look, I know there were some rumblings back around 2016 that I heard, and I don't know if they were true, but I heard some rumblings about Microsoft Publisher possibly being thrown out with the bathwater with Microsoft. Apparently, that's not the case. Here is Microsoft Publisher 2019, so it's pretty current. While we're here, I just happened to see this Microsoft Visio. That's a pretty darn good tool. There are other flow charting tools, but if you want to make a flow chart, Visio is actually a pretty darn good tool. Again, there are other things out there, but Visio is among the ones that I have used and liked. Now the price, that's an old price. I have no idea. Don't worry about it. This is somebody else's presentation. How many templates there are, again, depends on what you have, but there are lots of templates. And it works with different types of formats. You can create a PDF file. We talked about those. You can create an HTML web page type file and publish whatever you create. For whatever reason, you can publish it to look pretty damn close to what you look like on your screen onto the web page. But that, you got to be careful. In this day and age, we have desktop computers, laptop computers, tablet computers, and smartphone computers. And when you change sizes that much, it's a different world today in publishing websites and web pages. And that's something that my experience with Microsoft Publisher, it really sucked with web pages. Maybe it's better in the 2019 version, but I kind of doubt it. Microsoft has not been really well respected in the world of web page creation. They make very bloated, inefficient web pages for 20 years of their attempts to do it in Microsoft Office applications. Why would it be any different now? I'm willing to concede that I don't know what Publisher 2019 is, but if I'm going to do something for a web page, build it in a program specifically designed for web pages. But you still might need that HTML or XML or other languages where it can communicate with applications and things. And that's really handy. Even if you're not directly making a website, you might need to communicate with a website or communicate with an application on somebody's smartphone or something. Now, it is considered a user-friendly publishing package, and I get it. InDesign, Adobe InDesign, holy crap, the learning curve for that was pretty intense. The first week I needed to make something out of that program. I didn't sleep much that week. I pretty much stayed up all night, every day, nap at lunchtime or something, and I finally figured out how to get something done. Adobe InDesign was a big learning curve. The user-friendly part is why professionals kind of laugh at it in the publishing world. So like any Microsoft application, you start by creating a new file, but in Publisher, it needs to know a little bit more. Excel, you're starting with a workbook with 3 worksheets usually. In Word, you start with a blank page, one piece of blank paper based on your default page. In Publisher, it has no idea where you're going. Are you making business cards? You're making a trifold brochure, a quadfold brochure? Are you making a calendar? It needs to know your goal. What are you trying to do? And so that's the first thing you have to tell it. I'm trying to make a greeting card or a calendar. You can start with a blank page. It will allow you to do that and manually do everything on your own. But you know, for some projects, it might make sense. And I've actually chosen to do blank pages on some projects because I didn't like the templates. But these templates can be very, very useful. And I know in the past I've said bad things about templates in Word, especially. Some Word templates are pretty crazy how they decided to build the templates. From a professional Word file template creator, they might be very proud of themselves and pat themselves on the back. From a user, I look at these templates, and if I need to make any changes, like, holy crap, what did they do? How did they make this template? How do I tweak it? It's a resume with 3 jobs for your jobs. And you just type in your job here, your job here, your job here. What if you only have 2? What if you have 4? How the hell am I going to change it? And some templates in Word are just like so hard to change. You're better off starting with a blank page. That's not been my experience in Publisher. Yeah, I can have difficulty trying to figure out how to change things, but I think the templates are very useful. And they solve some problems to get you partway building what your tool is, what your product is, I should say. And get you started in a much better place than starting with a single blank piece of paper and figuring it out from there. So you just go through the different types of products with some general layouts. And once you have a general layout that you like, you start adding your own elements. You can add personal information, so it will pre-fill in the information. So let's say there's some sort of letterhead you're creating for a flyer, and it's going to ask you your business name and business address, etc., phone number. It will automatically put it in the right places. You just fill out the form. This is called a form, just like, because it's like a database. It is a database in a way. It's a database to build a document. And so you fill out the form, and then the form goes ahead and fills in the fields in your database, which are then displayed in the right place. So behind the scenes, there's some really good information being kept. And as you change the layout, all of the database of your name, phone number, address, company logo, all that stuff is being stored. And as you move them around, it will fill the information in. So once the color scheme is selected and you've updated your newsletter, you can select to the right of the newsletter one or two-sided printing. Again, what is the goal here? Am I printing this out? And if I am printing this out, is it going to be printed on both sides of a paper? And you need to know those kinds of things. If I'm going to be printing double-sided, do I need to print out all the odd pages first and then flip the paper over and print all the even pages on the back? You need to know your printer. Some printers print both sides of the page all by themselves. They flip the page over and keep printing. Some you have to manually learn, how do I print the odd number of pages, then the even number of pages, so that it works with my printer. Again, two-sided printing, or what's known as duplex printing in the industry. Two-sided printing is duplex printing. If you have a duplex printer, it does it for you. If you don't have a duplex printer, you have to learn, how do I flip the pages over to work properly. With inkjet printers, be careful. Don't be in a rush, because inkjets have a time required for their ink to set properly. And if you handle the pages, you squeeze them together a little bit, you can smear the inks when you're flipping it over to print, and then everything looks ugly. And trying to do that for 1 to 10 double-sided printers on a non-duplex printer, it's annoying. Trying to do 50, 100, 200 newsletters on a printer that doesn't do duplex printing, a real pain in the bottom. At today's prices, I'd just say get yourself a dang duplex printer if you're going to be doing this very often. Your font scheme, again, you can change the actual font scheme, which is like a style in Microsoft Word. So if you've defined your headers and your fonts and everything by style, rather than manually saying, I'm going to make this 18-point Times Roman font, you give it a style and then define your style, or in this case, in the language of publisher, scheme. Then all you do is update your scheme, and it will update the entire document with all of those particular elements. We didn't talk about that in Microsoft Word. Again, I think that's a little bit more advanced, and I don't want to blow out anybody's mind in terms of what you need to know for this class. And I'm assuming that all of you potentially are coming in as beginners, but I know that's not the case. So this might be a good time. Hey, I don't have publisher. I'm going to look into styles in Microsoft Word. Push yourself a little bit. Learn something new, even if it's not required for the class. If you're one of those intermediate users already, push yourself. Do something. Create a document. Create a style. Just type something up. Create some different headers in your report. Doesn't have to be anything fancy, just a one-page report with some heading 1, heading 2, heading 3 with some text and paragraphs, and then change the style and see what happens. It's the same concept as these schemes. Anyway, you can change it quickly for the newsletter. You can see here how changing a font scheme and applying it, you can see how it changes in the newsletter. And you can play around till you get what you like. As far as page content, that can certainly organize your newsletter in a way that you want to display, so it's user-friendly for your audience. Final step is to print preview, to view the document in its entirety so you can see what it will actually look like coming out of the printer or as it's displayed on the web page, which it won't be exactly like this, especially if you have a smaller screen. Sending newsletters in an email, well, you can click a send to option and then mail recipients, and it will actually send the newsletter. Now, if you're sending the newsletter, you want to make sure it's in a format that they can they can handle. Certainly, you know, if you send a publisher file, they need publisher, but if you send it as a PDF, then it doesn't matter. But again, the options, as they say, are endless. So here is a simple gardening layout, maybe for a gardening book, and this is an ad for a gardening book. And again, we just are scratching the surface here. Like I said, it can be trifold brochures, fancy brochures that when you open them up, they display information on different panels of the brochure. Maybe when you open it all the way up, there's some element of graphic that goes all the way across all three panels. Calendars, business cards, you name it. Greeting cards for family and friends, so you don't spend $5.99 for a Hallmark card at CVS. You know, for the cost of ink for $1, you can print out a really nice card that's much more personal. Things like that. Anyway, that is Microsoft Publisher.